Welcome to another episode of VNture Podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am Amar, and together with Taurus, we shall venture in another discussion about VNs. This time, we have a double feature. We have pleasure to introduce our listeners to two guests, both of whom contribute to the recent revival of Fuwanovel. Hello, Hata and Zaka. Please, if you could introduce yourselves.
Yeah, hello. Hi, my name is Hata, and I'm one of the most public people at Fuwanovel. Like, you will probably know me if you use Twitter and you see the Fuwanovel account. I'm a German Japanese student. I'm 26 years old, and I started visual novels around 2016 or 2017. And since then, I began with a website called Visual Novel Info, which is a German website that wants to introduce the German audience to visual novels. And since then, 5 years have passed, and now we are trying another venture by attaching Fuwanovel to our site and go international with it. And yeah, I'm not alone, so I also have a lot of people working with me, and one of them is my great friend Zaka.
Hi, and I am Zakamote, though everyone calls me Zaka, which I also prefer, so please do that. And I'm basically just a 31-year-old guy, believe it or not, from Sweden, and I've been into VNs for about 10 years, from the start of 2012, basically, and I also joined Fuwanovel in 2012, so I'm kind of OG, but I wasn't really there in the literal first moment, so I don't know everything, just most of it. And for Fuwanovel, I've kind of just gone up the ranks, and at the start I was a blog writer, then I kind of became a blog editor-in-chief, and ended up not doing all that much because I'm not always good at delegating people and having energy, which Hata really is, so that's helping a lot. But now I'm kind of for the revival of Fuwanovel, I am basically a general thing doer, and I'm also the admin of a Discord server, which is going to be important going forward. I think that's about it.
Thank you for the introductions. We're very happy to have you both as guests on the episode. I know the main topic for today is going to be about the Fuwanovel website. So, if you could you tell us a little bit about what exactly is Fuwanovel and the whole revival part of it coming back in its history?
Okay.
Okay, I would be starting with what Fuwanovel is right now is and what it has been, while Zaka will go into the history part definitely. Fuwanovel right now is basically a connection of a forum, a blog, a recommendation site, and a bunch of social medias, which basically make up the Fuwanovel as a whole. And the key part of Fuwanovel is the forum. In my opinion, it's the forum, and in hopefully soon everyone's opinion, it's the forum, because that one, since 10 years or so, like, Fuwanovel was founded 10 years ago, and since then it has gone through multiple phases, and one phase was a huge forum community, and we're trying to rebuild that kind of community right now with everything we have to offer. And the forum is the key part, and the blog is basically where we do the journalistic part of all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the history of Fuwanovel is kind of interesting. Perhaps not. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily have any shame about it, but we're definitely different now than we were before, because we started out as, you could say, a pirate site. Well, it wasn't just a pirate site. It was always both a community and a place to distribute visual novels. And the specific idea was to have them pre-patched. So idea was that you could get them very easily at Fuwanovel. Like you didn't have to like install a patch and get a Japanese thing or whatever. And that was meant to like spread visual novels. But in 2014, just 2 years after we started by an admin called Airu, we had basically moved to a new admin called Tay, and he eventually needed to decided that no, we're not going to continue like this. And he said, okay, we're not going to serve torrents anymore. So that was like 7 years ago. I can't. Hata said 2014. I think I might be right, but it might have been 2015 too. I actually don't know, and I don't care because it's so far in the past that it doesn't even matter. But yeah, and then we kind of continue like that. But one of the problems with Fuwanovel has always been somewhat absentee admins. First, Airu faded away, and then Tay is very busy in real life. And eventually, his not being around just de energized the whole community, and it just slowly died out, basically. And that brings us to the current day where Hata and VNinfo is basically picking the community back up and are the new admins, essentially, who are going to bring new life into this. And I'm happy to be part of a project and part of this revival and generally assist in any way I can, though I am very lazy, so not too much, please. And Hata, maybe you can talk about like the handover and so on.
I mean, I have a question before
Oh, yeah.
we go to the present. I want to dig in the past.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate maybe a little bit more about the trigger that made Fuwa abandon the gray area? And more specifically, because we're dealing with fan translations out of the time in visual novel community, where's the boundary of what's a gray area? Because obviously, when you create an art and you create a game, you create a piece, text is part of it. Yet, during the fan translation, the text is extracted and it's fan translated. But it's still a part of that art, a part of that product. I feel it's still a gray area, or maybe it's not. Again, I'm not expert. How can you approach? And I know I ask a lot of questions, maybe at two, but please, one at a time.
Okay, well, I think I can answer the part about legality, which is like, so morally,
Sure.
I think we can say it's a gray area. Legally, as far as I know, there is no real question, and it's basically always illegal. And the only real legal question is whether you, as a fan translator, if you do a translation and you're not allowed to do it, can anyone just take that translation, or is the copyright valid? And in most countries, the copyright isn't even valid, so you have no rights if you did that. But in Sweden, there is actually on the law that nobody else can use your translation either, which is a nice part of Swedish law that I happen to know because I took like one law course in university. But there is no real actual gray area. People pretend there is a gray area because there is a moral gray area and we want the law to match your morals. But it's actually just always illegal. The question is, will you get sued?
Okay, fair enough.
I have a little different opinion about it because in Germany we have very strict laws, especially when it comes to copyright and data protection and whatever. I also think that translation should, or fan translation is legally always illegal, unfortunately. But in Germany, kinda there was this. How do I say that? Inter-community agreement where the goal was, when you create a fan translation, to eventually get this game officially localized.
I see.
Which makes sense for stuff like anime fan subs or whatever. Like back, the fan sub scene in Germany was pretty much producing these fan translations in order to make these big companies, which we're not there at the beginning, kind of like to make it profitable that they would officially localize these games.
If I understand correctly,
Not these games, these.
if I understand correctly, so you recognize from the legality standpoint you don't really have anything to stand on, but at the very least from the morality standpoint, you try to build recognition and maybe the audience in a place devoid of it before, so that the official translation can come in and the game can earn its revenue here.
Well,
Pretty
the important
much.
part here, MR, is that we're focusing on Fuwanovel, right?
Okay,
It's about where the company is going.
fair enough.
instead.
I'm
I
just
know
saying,
you mentioned-
trying to analyze the answer, if I'm understanding correctly. But okay, sure.
On a different topic, I know you mentioned earlier that you wanted the forums to be one of the bigger selling points, right, Hata? And
Indeed.
I think that's a pretty unique approach because you look at the forums and it looks like something straight out of the mid-2000s and like an earlier time in the internet. And just a lot of people, I'm sure there's many who find it nostalgic. Are you part of maybe redesigning the forum at all, or do you have an artistic direction of where you want to take it?
Right now, the forum is using a forum software called Envision, which we unfortunately don't have the license key for because that's with Tay. We still have to get that because then afterwards we can like go in and do some really deeper redesigns and rearrangements of all of these things. Because right now the backend access pretty much is not 100% accessible and editable. But yeah, the forum pretty much. I believe the forum will be relevant because visual novels are not really a medium for the super young audience, like eroge is also a part of it and you need to be 18 to legally play these games. And I believe this kind of how do I say that, the age group that plays visual novels has grown up as netizens, so they are basically aware of what a forum is. They maybe have used IRC in the past, and they're like between, let's say 18, or okay, let's go back like 16 and 30 to even 40 years old. So that's like the age group that's supposed to, pretty much is addressed by visual novels in itself. Like, I don't think that the new TikTok kid audience from like 12 to 16 would be so interested in a medium that's so much about reading and actual deep engagement with with a medium instead of like shallowly consuming anime on a superficial level by reading subs and
Yeah, but speaking of which, how do you feel forums bowed in 2022? Because, like you mentioned, yeah, TikToks and all those easily digestible short videos and media is trending, is the thing. Forums is more of a older people thing, and I don't want to say boomer thing, but it's kind of in that vein from the older times. How do you feel about forums now? Do you feel they have a chance? Do you feel the mainstreamness to some degree of Discord makes people like forum or not like forums?
It is quite difficult to establish a forum again, especially after such a long downtime. The issue is that right now, the group of people we could reintegrate into the forums basically had a tinge of nostalgia with the forums itself because they have used it in the past, or they basically were lurkers in the Steam group and stuff like that. And eventually they came back. And yes, a forum is an old medium, but I also think that a forum and the mode of communication that happens in a forum these days is underappreciated. Because right now we have Twitter, we have Discord, we have TikTok, we have basically all these super fast communication modes where you don't really form a thought, like a full thought. And when you are in a forum, you write like a paragraph.
Yeah.
And this paragraph then has to be thought out, because it will always be until you delete it, it will be on the internet, it will be searchable, and it can give a lot of, let's say, knowledge. Like you can not digest, you can compress a lot of knowledge into a single paragraph, which you can't really find on Discord, because on Discord you just chat away and people are chiming in a forum, like in this more moderated environment. Pretty much you have these thoughts clearly expressed, while in Discord you obviously have a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
While we're living in a world of distraction. And at this point it also gets really annoying, because Discord is nice and all, but if you really want to engage with the VN community, you have to join like 40 or 50 different Discords.
True.
Depending on your personal interests or what genres of VNs you like. And then you have 10 publisher Discords if you want to keep up with everything. It's an overload. So Fuwanovel in itself, as a central point where hopefully we can eventually get it going, that also like publishers are posting their games there officially, so like their announcements, which has already happened before. So it's not a pipe dream. This makes it easier, because you really, first, you don't have to sign up in the forum to see all its content, and second, you don't have to join any groups, make an account, basically give yourself an identity, but you can still consume all the content. And itself, how do I say that? So basically everything is in one place, and that's actually how Fuwanovel is going to operate, by putting everything that there is to know for visual novels and make it very easy to access from Fuwanovel itself. So it's basically like a mothership of community, one of the motherships of the community.
Yeah. So
there are others.
if I could review your answer, because you brought 2 points, very important ones. You said you see Fuwa place in this community as an aggregator in something that is very fragmented. So, for example, Discord being a good example of how community of VN readers is fragmented into multiple servers. Yet you see Fuwa as an aggregator. Here, one place, one forum, let's share it all. That's one point you said. And the second point, and I think it coincides with a wave we can even recently see of how people are, at the very least, some segment of people is sick and tired of the fast-paced, easily digestible and consumable approach to social media that is devoid of nuance. You say, on average, forum is a platform in which the nuance has a place, because the thoughts are more constructed and longer, obviously.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good point.
Yeah. And I think the forums, actually, if I may interject a few boomer sensibilities here, I am 31 after all. I do think what the forums offer a conversation experience that isn't actually available anywhere else, because I think the closest analog is like Reddit, but Reddit is very focused on how voting affects, and obviously the threading and stuff. And forums are nothing like that. They're more like an actual conversation with people taking turns, which and they obviously have a space to take their turns, and they're not like a social media site like Twitter, where it's supposed to be short, or Facebook, where you're supposed to be yourself in real life or whatever. So they offer something unique that just isn't matched by anything else.
Fair
And
enough.
that's, I think, is one of the good parts about forums around. Even now in 2022.
Yeah.
And I also realized something. Oh yeah, really quick. in that, like you mentioned, you and Hata have strong European ties. And, when you have the rest of the world and VN community off in Japan or in North America, forums are also a great way to have conversations with people in different time zones in a way that several other social media sites don't, like Discord or Twitter. And I think, that's a really one great advantage that Fuwanovel brings with its forums.
Yeah. Another thing I want to add about the forum itself is the preservation, not effect, the preservation function of it. Like, basically when you read this forum now, it's like a time machine. You can go back and check all these old threads, all these old people. Maybe you recognize them, maybe they have new names now, but you can see like what games came out to that time, how hyped were people about them. So basically, even if we didn't want to build up Fuwanovel, there was still the function of preserving what was already there and basically making an archive of that 10-year period of the visual novel scene. Because if that would disappear, yes, how much would we lose? We would lose everything pretty much. Like all these fan translations that were made there, these tools, these discussions. It's quite important for preservation these days to happen, and all these forums and that are out there. There are still forums out there that are actively used, even though it's such a fast-paced society these days. But you have to find them and check what threads they have, and maybe you dig out some gems. So, kind of for people who like to excavate, forums are perfect.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I was also
The
going.
Fuwanovel forums. Wait, so the Fuwanovel forums are even a bit more special there because we also have a plugin that lets you basically write blogs on the forum, and we have a lot of these from especially some members. I think like hundreds of reviews from one certain member, and there are blogs about like editing, fan translations from multiple people, and blogs trying to define visual novels. It's actually crazy if you look into the blog content as well. So there's even more to preserve than just threads. It's kind of crazy.
Okay, now you added a third point to what I wanted to mention from this discussion. First thing you mentioned is it has a place, because Discord and social media nowadays tend to reward lowest common denominator kind of approach with memes, jokes, etc. And it has its place. Yet forums tends to reward more thoughtful approach, more lasting, more pronounced. Okay, so that was one thing. The other thing is about the returnee. Is also kind of a long-standing archive of what has been in the past and what is now. And some people left, some people returned. And it's a funny example that you brought specifically that one, because after the episode with Pablo, when you guys announced that episode on the Discord, Hata mentioned me, maybe I could give him a link to join the Discord server. So okay, I just passed along to Pablo and he appreciated the invite, and then people recognize him. Like outstanding healer, like that was a very wholesome ending. I really like that. Damn. It's a part of history in a way. But And the third point that you just brought, Zaka, was about blogs. Because this is also something pretty old, but it's very prominent on your site and you push it quite nicely, I would say. Yeah. What's your thoughts about that? Because it's a bit different structure, because you do not engage in discussions per se as you do with forums, but rather you post out something very lengthy, which is not necessarily easily digestible, which is a difference from, for example, long-standing podcast videos you might actually be on right now.
If I can just interject really quick. But before you answer that, can you describe how the blogs interact with Fuwanovel's system?
So basically, you can just click on like a blog tab, and you'll see a list of all the blogs. Like it's sort of like a directory of different blogs, and each user can even have multiple blogs. But so first of all, you can write them on the forum themselves, and that might help you somewhat with formatting being consistent. But you can also use an RSS import from, for example, WordPress, and that will pull your blog that you might have on a different site into Fuwanovel, and it'll do that. And it might not look amazing, but it'll have that, and it'll have a link to your original post and so on. And basically, it's kind of a decent way to get eyes on your blog post. Well, the view counters on those, be wary of them. But there's some kind of bug with view counters for at least some of the blog posts, so don't take them too seriously. But I remember that I posted like I have my personal blog that I post to, but then I also copy it to Fuwanovel. And I remember there was one in particular that I got a lot of comments on, and I got a lot of interesting discussion on, which I thought was nice. So in general, yeah, it's a kind of thing. So, and that's a forum blog feature. I don't know exactly what we're planning in the future, but I would definitely like to have like lists or introductions to other blogs in this kind of VN sphere, because I mean, it kind of goes back to what Hata was saying, that like we want to be a central hub. But of course, the hub has spokes that go out to other things, and one of those things would be blogs that can give analysis that might not be on our so-called main site or blog. And they can maintain their individuality, and we can still be there and connect everyone in the scene.
Yeah. Uh, Something I want to add to the blog environment. Back in the day, around, I don't know, in the 2000s pretty much, and up to like 2015 or so, the blog scene in the visual novel community was very prominent. There were like a lot of personal WordPress blogs. The most known probably would be like VN Eroge Review, unfortunately, which is by some dude who machine translates games, but releases like a lot of stuff in high capacity. He also like made a lot of synopsis on VNDB for very unknown games. But there's also like the blog by Conjurador or by Gade blogs or so. So like there are a lot of these blogs. Pretty much they kind of lost prominence because the people stopped posting on them for once, and a lot of times it's quite difficult to get people to comment on your blog. So it kind of feels like people are writing into the void somewhat because they don't get feedback besides like raising view numbers. With Fuwanovel and the blog feature in itself, I kind of believe that you could do it like one guy who is doing it right now on the with this user blog. He has his personal blog called Into the End Sky or something, and he posts condensed reviews on the Fuwanovel user blog. And from this condensed review, he then links to his full review. So basically, he like offers half the review and then offers full the review on his blog. And I can tell that quite a lot of people who are using Fuwanovel right now are jumping over on that blog. And if we like extrapolate that to like in a very big scale, pretty much everyone could kind of post their shortened reviews on Fuwanovel and gain the viewers that they would probably not get because they don't know SEO or like these techniques, how to really make people aware of your mostly isolated blog, or they don't have like the social media prowess for it. Yeah, we could lure people pretty much there, so they get motivated and write more blogs, and that way more knowledge gets generated. Because you really have to consider every single person in the visual novel community you don't know what they know. You don't know what their knowledge is, what their favorite games are. Everyone is a treasure trove, and everyone has to get motivated to write down their own thoughts. And if you make it very easy to them and then accessible that people actually read these blogs, they might gain the motivation to contribute to the community that way. Yeah.
That's a very beneficial relationship between Fuwanovel and any independent blog writers out there. That's very cool.
Yeah, and as a person allergic to social media and just can't stand even advertising there, I just can't. I definitely sympathize with people who gain following using such a method that you just described, Hata.
Yo.
So you've covered the Fuwanovel forums and also the blog implementation. Are there any other last parting notes you want to share about Fuwanovel? About some of the topics we haven't picked up on it yet?
Well, we have other arms. We are on Twitter and on Facebook. I don't know if Hata want to talk about Twitter, but he uses it quite a lot.
Well, so Twitter, pretty much, let's say, Twitter has a follower count of 7,200 right now. Unfortunately, over the long period of absence, this a lot of followers pretty much died out. So what I did in the first 2 months, from August and September, was to basically tweet a lot. Like, generally get a lot of tweets out there, do a lot of retweet a lot of indie games pretty much, because, it's I kind of feel Fuwanovel has the possibility to give spotlight to these very invisible things on social media, because social media obviously uses algorithms and it plays down stuff that doesn't get upvoted often. And we kind of wanted to achieve that a lot of gems that you can find online, which appear on our timeline, because I sort by chronology, and then I see a lot of stuff that people who use the algorithm structure of Twitter don't see. So we kind of did two things. First, we retweeted and basically signal boosted the stuff that people were posting on our forums. So basically post their links and then post a link to the discussion on the forum. And then people went there and started discussing. And on the other hand, I also started retweeting a lot of other stuff that's important in the community, new movements, VNs are alive, which is like a very important account. I have to shout out because they're doing really good stuff. Basically, we're using Twitter to signal boost on things that are more invisible, so they get some recognition that they deserve.
That's very interesting that you speak about your reach to potential viewers, potential readers, etc. And that sparked a question in my mind. I wanted to ask you, what is the reverse of that? What is your approach to reaching out to the people that do create that? I mean, specifically, I wanted to mention Leszak, most notable for ENV, English Visual Novel Chronicles, but also, for full disclosure, you guys also found us and reached us to us. So, what's your approach for that?
What's your approach for that? I'm saying I'm kind of living on Twitter. I have my tweet deck open all the time, and I basically scour it a lot for new news to tell to our writers, so they can like investigate or think, that's a game that I maybe want to play. Maybe you can get a key for me so we can review it on the blog and stuff. So I basically look through Twitter at the scene and then pick out the things that look cool, the things that basically are invisible. And that way I also found your blog. I found your podcast. And frankly, I watched a lot of episodes before actually contacting you.
Oh, I
But
see.
right now, yeah, it was interesting because podcasts are also a very rare medium these days for visual novels. There were like some podcasts, but those, yeah, I don't know, they were not really successful in a way, and they also eventually died out. I think there was also a Fuwacast, right, Zaka?
Oh yeah, there were like actually multiple Fuwanovel podcasts, and I think I've been on like most iterations of those actually. Well, not all episodes.
Well, generally, podcasts are also a really cool format that I wanted to, spread around. And that's also why we invited you to the forum to post there so more people can see it, because you were just a new account. And I kind of thought, that way, not we could help you, but that way we could benefit mutually from things. Like you get some people from our forums itself, and
And you guys get an
maybe you can
episode, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
There we
And I
have a
mean,
good joke.
And I mean, we are honored to have you on our side as well. You know,
yeah,
it's not a one-way street.
yeah. Obviously, I just wanted with that
I'm
joke
actually very thankful that you're having us.
just to not let it have unsaid. We also appreciate you reaching out. So it works both ways. It's my approach to reciprocity of your kindness to have you guys here.
Yeah.
It's very much appreciated. That said, we are coming up and we're going to have to wrap things up soon for this episode. Are there any last parting words you want to share with any of the viewers to check out Fuwanovel?
So parting words, as I already talked about earlier, we want to basically unite the scene somewhat by making it easily accessible to get everywhere. So recently we started creating some content in a way trying to, as I already said, signal boost for different communities. Or for example, we wrote an article about Super Ange recommending some YouTubers, and then we added some. But recently, something I'm very proud of, I actually created a master list of all the visual novel communities I could find and put them all together into a single link, into a single post. So this post actually blew up on Twitter, kinda, because some big accounts were retweeting it. And we kinda would appreciate if you would bookmark that link so you can not only visit us. I mean, sure, we're benefiting from you visiting our link there, but you can also find all the communities, all the discords, all the forums. Yeah, we also went down to research some forums, which are basically our competition, but it doesn't matter. Forums are cool. And we kind of want to create this tunnel system from which people can engage with the entire visual novel scene by going through Fuwanovel in itself. And we would also appreciate if you obviously signed up to the forum or read our content, checked out our blog, the social media, etc. Because we're really trying our darndest to make this community something united. Because right now there's a lot of separation and we're aware of that. But like having this one place where everything is combined and you can easily access other places without any power struggles in between. That is something that currently does not really exist. So we want to say Fuwanovel, there are multiple communities, but Fuwanovel will be one of the great ones eventually. Yeah.
I see. And I have one last question before we put this episode to a close. VNTS is a microcosm of what you guys just talk about your idea, about your unification, about one part, one point in the tunnel from which people can go through to what they are looking for. And odd enough, I don't want to ask about VNTS itself, and obviously please visit it because it's quite good, but how do you guys deal with the dual energy in it? Because now we had you guys here, I could experience the dual energy of two people here, and it shows in VNTS. How do you deal with that?
So that kind of depends on how. Well, it kind of mostly depends on who wrote their commentary first, and in part just how we're working together in the episode. But like mostly just we both do our thing, and sometimes we react to what the other person is writing. Usually Hata to me because I tend to be faster than him, but that depends. And I do really like. I remember some of the longer commentaries I've made that Hata made jokes about it, like in his commentary afterward, and I think that worked out really well. So that's the part that I think we can actually work on growing and doing a bit more, because I don't think we're like consciously trying to do it that much right now. Maybe Hata has a different opinion though. So yeah, in general. And also, I think well, I have done sometimes, been a bit of a mischievous editor when, and like saying that no, that's completely wrong in a parenthesis and stuff when he puts it in because I can't help myself. And I figure that that energy will just, make it funnier rather than be silly. And I mean, I love Hata, but it is also somewhat fun to bully him at times. So, there's both parts there.
It's a give and take relationship, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely. Hata gives me a lot, and I take a lot. No.
Okay, I would also like to say my opinion about VNTS posts because they are actually my favorite posts to write. I kind of orientate myself around Zaka's writing style. Obviously, I'm not imitating it, but I'm kind of doing this free form, somewhat banterish kind of style. But I think our dynamic works pretty well together because I kind of noticed whenever we invited someone else on the blog, they did not really get into it. Like some other people have also written for the VNTS before, for example, the Daybreak translation guy or Cynical Geek. Basically, other people they then just plug their stuff and maybe talk a bit about the translations. But because Zaka and me are so very, very deeply integrated into this scene, and I personally check more about these titles that are being released and these fan translations and stuff. I think I bring a lot of knowledge, while Zaka brings his knowledge personally too, but he doesn't like dive as deep. It's more like he's doing the sarcastic, the humorous part, while also, yeah, doing a lot of stuff like, I don't know, talking about what was it? Uh, how a certain word in a translation was actually used correctly or incorrectly. So like these very minute details. While I'll talk more about the actual topic at hand and like the translation group. I went to their Discord, stuff like that. Like, yeah, he does the humorous part. I do the more investigative part that takes more effort, but it works very greatly together as like two puzzles fitting together. And I really love these VNTSs, and I like to write them every week, even though sometimes, because we're of other obligations, they kind of get delayed. But we kind of hope to get one out every Tuesday or so. Like these VNTSs, the originals come out on Sunday, and then we have like 1 or 2 days to prepare our text. But sometimes it takes longer because obviously we're also having other obligations. Mostly with Fuwanovel have to do with Fuwanovel 2, which obviously are prioritized. Yeah, so the VNTS is one of the big parts of the blog, but our great team of, I don't know, 15 or 20 people we have right now, we really have to like integrate them into a consistent workflow, and then this blog will provide you with a lot of great intellectual articles and knowledge and analysis and whatever. So yeah,
Already
we're-
have some out, of course.
we're doing great. We're doing great stuff here, I believe. Okay.
Cool. So thank you very much. On that note, let us proceed to the end screen. It was a pleasure to have you guys, Hata Zaka. I can't thank you
you very
enough
much.
for appearing and speaking out about Fuwa to us and our listeners. And thank you everybody who listened, and see you next time.
Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good day, everyone.